Hey guys, welcome back to Watches and Wheels YouTube channel. Now you've been coming to my channel probably for 64 Dodge Polara things, but like I said in earlier videos, I'm a Toyota guy. So I have a couple Toyotas sitting around that I've been collecting and driving for a long period of time. And this is one of the cars in my collection that I'm having a bit of a quandary about, and I don't know what to do with it because I'm losing my garage space. Since the Polara is going to be going in the garage, and unfortunately, and I wish it wasn't true, but the Polara is worth a hell of a lot more money than this Celica is. I have reached a point where I don't know what to do anymore. Either I'm going to rent a place to keep it or something, I don't know. But it's a pretty special car. I've owned it for about 11 or 12 years, and the engine that's in it, if you're familiar with Toyotas, this Toyota's got a turbo 22 RTE in it, which came out of a Toyota 4Runner or a pickup truck back in the day. I think from like 85 or late 85 to 88, maybe early 88, they turbocharged the 22R. So, I'm going to take you on a tour of this thing, and at the end of the video, I'm going to take you out for a ride in it and tell you what makes this thing so special. So let me get my camera flipped around here. We'll take a walk. And before I get started here, there's something I need to tell you as I get my camera adjusted so that I can walk around and talk. Alright, there we go. I bought this car, I think about 12 years ago, from a guy in Pittsburgh. It's funny, the Polara came from Pittsburgh and this came from Pittsburgh. But the man I bought it from the original owner, which was a woman who worked for the Department of Defense in California. Now this is a California car. It spent almost its entire life in California, and it was owned by a woman almost its entire life, till I know that and I think she owned it to about 185,000 miles. She kept it in a garage. She didn't shit up the damn floor mats and smoke in it and damage it, do anything to it. She took really good care of it. I mean, immensely good care of it. And she saved everything. Window sticker, all the original keys, every one. How often do you get all the original keys? She saved the window sticker. She saved all the booklets and stuff that came with it, even down to the little aluminum tag that has the key code on it. And she loved it. She had to have loved it. And it drives and rides like a woman drove it who cared about it and loved it. And the fact that it spent its entire life in California made it an excellent candidate for me to do a swap to it. Because when I bought this car, it did not have an original engine in it. Well, the guy had the original engine, but he built it up with some kind of mega squirt computer and a cam and headwork. And you know, this is my opinion. 22Rs are not designed to build up for power. They're a single cam 12 valve tappity tap forklift motor that lasted forever, and then you couldn't make any more power at 4,000. That's where the tack ran out. It just made a lot of noise. But you want to talk about reliable, bulletproof, that's an engine that's pretty much world renowned for being bulletproof and reliable. So anyway, so my dad had bought a turbo truck probably, and we're going back 20 years now, and drove that thing in Pennsylvania until a dang gas tank fell out of it and the damn spare tire was in the bed because everything was so rusted away. But I told my dad when he bought it, take care of the engine. Change the oil every 2,000 miles. Don't overheat it. Take care of it like you want to make it last, because you got a pretty special truck. Now, in hindsight, I wish I would have kept my dad's turbo truck and restored it, because those things are 20 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, depends on the condition and options. Turbo trucks and 4Runners are worth a hell of a lot more than a Celica. But, you know, it's gone, parted out. So when the truck ran rusty, I pulled the engine. I took the airflow meter, all the wiring harness, the ignition system, the computer, and I put it in this car. Now the guy that owned it, who bought it from the original owner, I was telling you about that woman, which I'm not going to tell you her name, because her name is on some information that I have in order to keep her privacy. He did that mega squirt powered super hot rod motor, God, I don't know, that just worth nothing motor, and he wanted like $3,000 for this thing on eBay. Now we're going back 12 years. And I'm like, man, I don't want the engine. You keep the engine. I just want the car. And nobody bought it. Nobody wanted it. So I emailed him again. I said, hey, just sell me the car. So finally, after listening a whole bunch of times, he decides to sell me the car. He wants $1,000 for this. I'm like, all right. That's worth every bit of $1,000. An original paint. Well, one owner, I'm thinking. Look, it doesn't even have a sunroof in it. It's a non-sunroof car. Now, Toyota had built about 3,000 plus convertibles in '85. So a lot of these hardtops roofs were cut off them, and they made convertibles out of them. So I remember, I don't know if you're familiar with Pennsylvania, there was a man I was good friends with named Lyle Dietz. He used to own Dietz's. Well, he called it Future Cars Toyota. It was a Toyota junkyard in Copley, man, about half an hour from my house. And I remember back in the day, Dietz's loved Coupe Celicas. I remember we were talking about how rare they were back then, and I didn't really realize that they were rare because a lot of them were chopped up to make convertibles out of them. But the hardtops, especially ones without a sunroof, were always sought after. You could find hatchback GTSs all over the place back in the day. But a coupe, that's a different story. Totally different story. And you want to talk about a survivor. Well, this thing has survived. Original paint. I love original cars that are unrestored. Original set of wheels. Like I said, all the original information, I'm going to show it to you. It's in the trunk. Spare tires, never been out on the road. Interior is just beautiful in it. Well, I'll just give you a look and see what this interior looks like. Pretty much it's a Supra with a 4-cylinder. All the original floor mats are still in it yet. The dashboard's real nice. I have the original shift knob for it. I always loved the white 60s era hot rod vintage car shifter, so I bought a Hurst knob for it because I thought it looked cool. But other than that, it's still the original. Everything's there. I think I still have the original radio for it yet. Now, if you look down here on the console, you're going to notice there's a funny little toggle switch there. I'm going to come right in and show that to you. You notice the green and black. Well, when you have a turbocharged car, you need an oil temperature gauge. I'm a big, huge advocate that if you've got a turbo anything, you better have an oil temperature gauge in this car, in a car with turbos, because turbos get oil nice and hot, and you could damage an engine just because you overheat the oil if you don't even know what the temperature is of it. So what I did was on the 22R, there is another bung for an oil pressure sending unit, but I didn't want to use that. So I decided to put a temperature gauge sending unit from a Celica in that spot. So what this is if you look at green is coolant. You flip this toggle switch forward, that's the temperature of your coolant. You flip this back to black, that's your oil temperature. So I'm using 2 sending units so that I can use the temperature gauge of the car like a dual purpose kind of thing. Look at these nice door panels. Just beautiful. Just loved. So I'm going to take you over there and show you those gauges. Still has the original power antenna in it yet. The windows were tinted in California back in the day. They turned like a purple color. They're kind of cool. So now, when you toggle between those two, green and black, the temperature gauge turns into an oil temperature gauge. So you figure red's about 260. So you don't want to go any more than that. When that needle starts creeping towards the red, that's oil temperature's pretty hot. Because this engine, I do not have an oil cooler in it. It's stock as it could be stock. It's not modified in any way. Another little item I got that's really rare. Look at this. Turbo SR5. Now that is rare. Hard to find. It cost me a fortune to buy a horn button from a turbo truck just so I could have this. It's still the original one for the Celica, but I put this one in here. Has air conditioning, has a power steering, power brakes, tilt wheel. Look at that headliner. no sunroof. Makes the car much stiffer. And I gotta tell you, this car drives like new. It's got 202,000 miles on it. You would never know it. Never know it. It was just driven by a woman who cared about it. Look how beautiful that seat is. All the original floor mats are in it. Nothing's all chewed up and dogged up. Power locks, power windows. Hot dog, huh? Original wheels. Anyway, getting back to this engine. So I put this engine in here after I bought it from that guy in Pittsburgh. And it didn't really require a whole lot of modifications. You have to change the pan, put a Celica pan and pickup on it, and modify the motor mount on the driver's side. But other than that, it is literally a plug-and-play style kind of swap. You don't have to cut wires. You can unpin and repin the wiring harnesses because they're so close together. As far as the colors, if you compare a turbo truck schematic to a Celica schematic, an 85 only, I'm speaking for 85, not 84, because 85 is the first and last year they used digital fuel injection. So there are some little minor changes, but the Toyota turbo truck used digital ignition. So the igniter and the coil and all the wiring harnesses are for the truck, and their original locations, and they're put in their original locations just like they would in the truck. Now, one thing that is different is the airbox. If we look over here, this is originally where the Celica's airbox is. So you have a problem because you need to get over here to the inlet for the turbocharger. Now, that's why I was saying earlier that in this place where the battery is located, this is where the induction and the air filter was for the turbocharger, so you can have the airflow meter sitting right about here, then it goes down to there. So if you look, I have an intercooler from a Conquest TSI, and it fits in there real nicely. But here's the catch. It's not intercooled. See, if you look here, this is the original induction pipe from the turbocharger to the engine intake. Now, I didn't want to get rid of this because this has a welded pipe for cooling the turbocharger, which is this one, and then you've got this one, which is a breather for the engine. So I did not want to lose this because I wanted to keep it looking like it was original to the car. So what I had to do was, I didn't want to cut this battery box out and weld it over here and take this and put it over here. So I had to come up with something creative. Because originally this truck was not intercooled, or the truck was not intercooled, nor did it have an oil cooler. So you had to be really careful with these engines because they ran hot. And I don't mean coolant, I mean oil. They ran hot and you could damage them easily. A lot of them, you know, shit the bed years ago. A lot of them were blown up and spun rod bearings because nobody had an oil temperature gauge. Everybody just ran them, and, you know, they're rare. Pretty damn rare. So what I did was I had to make another pipe. If you look down there, you'll see that that pipe runs down under the car to the intercooler, over, and then underneath. It's a tight fit too, to the induction side of the turbocharger. So it's not intercooled. It's just a way to breathe air to the turbo. So I'm not getting any power gains. Now this engine, according to Toyota, was rated at 135 horsepower, and this is running about a stock wastegate set about 5-6 pounds of boost. I did not modify the engine in any way. I wanted to keep it as original as possible. Everything I possibly could to keep this thing original was my focus. I did not want it to look like that it was modified in any way. So it's kind of, you know, odd to do it the way I did it, but I was not going to take a real beautiful original car and start cutting battery boxes. And in fact, I didn't cut or make a mark in any of this thing anywhere. But it's still all original. Nothing's been painted. The transmission uses a W58 5-speed. And those transmissions now, a real nice one in good condition, is $1,000. Because this car uses the same suspension as a Supra of the same year. Same things. You can interchange all the parts just about. Doors are the same, windshield's the same, mirrors are the same, seats, glass, except the back 3 windows because this is a coupe. the moldings for the most part, the rims, all the brakes, because the GTS was a pretty special car because you got the Supra suspension system. So you got the springs, you got the four-wheel disc brakes, you got the larger rear end, which on a stock one of these, say just a GT model, came with a real smaller differential with like 352s and 342s depending on what year you bought. 82, 83, 84. I think 84 went to 390s because this car's got originally a 390 rear end in it. It's not a limited slip. It's just an open rear. But it's just fantastic. I love it. But here's the problem, is I'm losing my garage space and I don't know what to do with it. I really don't know what to do with it. The underneath is just as immaculate as the top of it. I'm going to take a look and show you those goodies I got in the trunk. I think you'll find this kind of cool. Check this out. Woman kept the brochure. Look at how cool that is. So that's what the brochure looks like for an 85 Celica GTS. Look at that interior. People love these seats. I remember back in high school, guys that owned Chevelles bought these seats just because they're so comfortable. They're almost like a Recaro, but Toyota made them. There's the convertible. So you got to think, if they built over 3,000 of these things, well, think about why when I was telling you about Dietzy, that's why the Coupe is so much rarer than a hatchback. And they even rallied these things. Modified, rallied them. Kind of cool. And there's the horsepower rating. Like I said, Toyota rated this Turbo 22 RTE at 135 horsepower at 6 pounds of boost. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think that's a bunch of malarkey. I don't believe that. I think that engine's around 150 horsepower. But Toyota put a real small stock exhaust on the truck. You know? So, of course, it wasn't going to make... Maybe it did make 150 horsepower, but it was probably pretty close. Well, you got the standard car, hatchback. Look at that. There's an ST and a base model. How cool is that? I believe that this woman wanted this stuff. Could have got it with an automatic, digital display dash, but you couldn't get a digital display dash in a GTS that I'm aware of. And it shows all the options. At any point in time, you can stop the video and have a look at some of this stuff and get a chance to read it. Interesting specifications come with it. And there's that. And check this out. Here's the window sticker for the car. $13,094. And this is a California car, so it's got emissions, cruise control, air conditioning. Look at the air conditioning price. Mamma mia. Floor mats. That's some expensive stuff. Think about that. So I got the original window sticker. How often do you get that stuff? And then, this is where it was purchased new in California. And it looks brand new. Everything is like brand new. Everything has just been taken such good care of. Have a look at how cool this stuff is. Here's the warranty book for California. All that stuff is there. I'm not going to show you that information on the back because I don't want the woman's identity revealed, because I don't. You can just take my word for it. Original owner's manual. In almost mint condition. Hell, these things are probably close to 50 bucks on eBay now. Where it gotten tires and some receipts from when she owned it, and the business card of the man, I guess, that sold it to her. I don't know if Rex is still alive, but if he is, there's that. And look at this. These are the original main keys. Ignition, trunk, and then I have all the original keys for it. How often do you get this stuff? Still the original keys, almost like brand new. And look at that, there's the little tag for the lock code. How neat is that? Take a look at this. A spare tire. Look at that baby. Psh, brand new. Still has little nubbers on it yet. Still holds air. I can smell the rubber because it's covered up for so long that you can see the insulating tar they put in here actually got on the mat itself. But you can actually smell the tire. The rubber of the tire. How fun is that? Look how nice the trunk is in it, yeah. Nothing's rusty. Usually these cars are all Swiss cheese by the time you get into the 90s, and the metal's thin. Metal's thin. But hot dog. Just beautiful. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it now. I love it, but I love the Dodge more. So I'm not really sure what I want to do with this thing. Do I want to keep it? Do I want to sell it? What's it worth in today's market? Here's what I'm going to propose. Because right now it's potentially for sale. Excuse me, but I don't know if I'm going to sell it. But I'm going to need the right number. So let's talk about numbers. Since a lot of things I see on YouTube, people want to talk about numbers. How much, Brian? How much you got in it? We'll talk about that stuff. What's it worth now in 2020? What's it worth now? A Survivor GTS Coupe Celica with a manual, no sunroof, with a super rare 22RT turbo swap in it. Real nice, no rust, original paint, original glass. I'm a third owner with all the paperwork and all the goodies that come with it. What's it worth? Okay, so bear with me. I watched the market on these, and the import market is hot. It's hot. Someone's gonna have it. So a nice one, a nice Celica GTS in real original condition, fairly, is $5,000. Fairly. A few that I've seen come up for sale, $5 grand, no questions. Hell, a rusty Mark II Supra is $5 grand. So, what's this worth? Well, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that in the market right now, if this car went, say, on Bring a Trailer, in its condition, I would say the car would potentially, could possibly hit 10 grand. Potentially. Depends. Potentially. But I'm thinking fair market in its current condition, $8,500. I think $8,500 is a very fair, very reasonable price for a car of this quality. Now I could be wrong, but the market ain't anywhere near tanking. It's still hot. Now, it's got blemishes, don't get me wrong. You can see little tiny spots. There's some little marks on it all over the place. Little things though, nothing that draws your attention where you're like, oh my God, it's so bad. I'll give you an example. There's a little dent right here. Little tiny one, just teeny. Probably could fix that with dent repair tools. There's a little mark back here on the corner. There's a little mark on the bumper right here. Looks like maybe she had bumped something with it. I don't know, but I touched it up. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't want to monkey with it. But the quarters, here, I'm going to show you underneath this thing. Because my buddy Jay made a beautiful exhaust system for this thing. It's a full 2.5 MagnaFlow exhaust. All the way up to the engine. So I know it's making at least 150, 160 horsepower on the stock boost. I feel confident of that. The chassis is just gorgeous. It has the original KYD shocks on it yet, which I restored because they were the original shocks, and I didn't want to replace them. This car rides and drives and shifts so smooth and quiet, you wouldn't believe it. It definitely wasn't kid owned. It was not kid owned. To me, it sounds like kind of like a Subaru, but you'll have to hear it when we go on the test drive at the end of this video. But the floor pans, the wheel houses, the rocker panels, all that stuff is just superb. absolutely superb. Now you might be asking me, what do you got for a fuel pump since you're running a turbo motor? Well, this has actually got a fuel pump from a Mark III Supra Turbo. And believe it or not, it actually bolts right in, just like the factory fuel pump. And it's quiet. It's not that Warborough. Oh, drive me absolute batshit to have to listen to that. Because here's the thing. A Mark IV fuel pump is rated for about 600 horsepower. It's the same specification, so you can get away with it. A quiet fuel pump that's good for 600 horse? Shit, right? The motor's making 150, 160 maybe. Don't want to hear that. Oh, drive me up a wall. And that's the thing about this engine. It's unique. The intake's unique. It's got a unique block specifically for this application. It's not like a 22R where you can just, I mean, I think you could probably bowl all this crap onto it and make it work, but the compression ratio is like 7:1. So it's got low compression. But it's just happy. All the emissions controls are hooked up, and I did, when I had this exhaust system put on, I had a California spec converter put on it, just in case, if I ever decided to sell it, it'd be legal for California, because that matters, you know? Everything's welded, there's no clamps. Now you notice inspection it's been run out for like 5 years. Well, in Pennsylvania, I got an antique license plates, so you don't need inspection and emissions testing, but I didn't want to outlaw it like the Supra and run a full 3-inch exhaust with no converter. This car, for some reason, I just felt the need to make sure that it was kept in its most original possible condition. The AC does work in the car, but I haven't charged it probably in 6-7 years, so it does work. You can put refrigerant in it and it's ice cold. Cruise control, well, I don't know. I've never actually tried it. I don't know if it even works. I don't think it's gonna work because this needs a vacuum pump because it's turbocharged, and if you know anything about vacuum actuated cruise control, it's got a 2-way valve right here. So I think you probably could get away with it, but I don't know how it would work, and that's not the point. The point is that it has all its original stuff in it. All the original wiring harnesses and most of all of the original hoses are still intact, but I kept the original Toyota clamps. I converted it to Toyota Pink. That stuff's the best. Pop-up headlights work. Love those things. To me, this kind of looks like an angry Hornet from the front. I prefer an 82, 83 front end with the headlights that lay back. You know? But whatever. So anyway, that's pretty much the story with this thing. It's a pretty car. If you're looking for a really, really nice original paint Survivor Celica Coupe Turbo, 5-speed, no sunroof, with all the goodies, I'll tell you what, you send me a contact. And if I still have it, you can have it for $8,500. If not, I'll keep it. Maybe I'm priced a little high, I don't know. I'm hoping when I publish this video that the people who are looking for Celica and Toyota stuff will find it, because you're coming to me right now for Polara stuff, but I don't know, guys. I don't know what to do. I'm having quite a quandary here. And I gotta do laundry. I got a quandary. Laundry and quandary. So anyway, I'm done being silly. Oh, I'll show you one more thing too on this car. It had a little, I prepared this. It had a little rust spot here. And by no means am I a body guy, but I did do some minor repair here, and I had the original paint mixed up, and I touched it up. It could be professionally repaired better, but I'm not a body guy. I'm a nuts and bolts guy. I'm a watchmaker. Oh, here's another flaw. I can show you. A little paint chip here. Probably could be wet sanded and blended, but the paint is really nice. So, alright, well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go get the GoPro. We're gonna go for a ride. Let you hear what this thing sounds like. Alright? So I'll see you in the car in a minute.